This is Naga Lakshmi. So I'm here today to discuss with all of you about the second chapter in jurisprudence unit, that is Schools of Jurisprudence. So I'm not going to directly jump into Schools of Jurisprudence. First we would be discussing about the important definitions of jurisprudence, then we will discuss about the Schools of Jurisprudence. This video is completely in the examination point of view as it is very important. Most of the questions every semester, I mean yearly twice exam would be conducted. I could see in almost like each and every exam, more or less the questions had been asked from the second chapter, Schools of Jurisprudence, and the first chapter, not nature and sources of law, but still only the definitions of law. So to the best possible from my side, I have tried to include all the important definitions of law as well as jurisprudence. Those I could not include in my last video, but I could collect today. I'm just trying to dictate. Those who are really interested, you can just jot it down in the process of listening to my video. Okay. So, Schools of Jurisprudence. Last video, I gave a very brief idea about what is law and the important definitions of law. That is, the exact meaning of law according to the different jurists. Now, what exactly is this jurisprudence and the definitions we will learn in this video? So again, I'm telling you, this video particularly is examination point of view. So we would be discussing in the form of question and answer format, trying to refer the previous year question papers. I didn't mention from which year question paper that particular question had come, but with my past experiences of writing set and net exam, I know what kind of questions had been asked because I prepared almost all the previous year question papers when I gave my attempt to the net exam. So based on that, I have jotted down the important definitions given by the various jurists. Okay, so let us move to the very first topic, the important definitions of jurisprudence. Those who have seen my first video, they would have easily connected to the Wolffian's definition because I explained in my very first video. This question has been asked in June 2019 exam. Who defined jurisprudence as the knowledge of things divine and human, the science of just and unjust? It is Wolffian. I gave enough explanation about Wolffian and Paulus, so henceforth I will not take time. But before that, see, this jurisprudence term had been vividly defined in various ways according to their personal perceptions. You have to understand that fact while you are going through the concept of schools of jurisprudence. For me, if sovereign is the source of law, I will not define or understand the term jurisprudence as the divine attribution. I will only see the jurisprudence as some body of rules and regulations that is enforced by the tribunals. Okay. Now, Wolffian, according to Wolffian and Paulus, these were the jurists who had evolved in the 16th and 17th century, who perceived the jurisprudence concept as the attribution of the divinity, and also the more they have attached this morality aspect to the law. That's how, or that's why we could see the aspects of the science of just and unjust. Everybody is agreeing with the fact of jurisprudence is one of the integral social sciences, but what is it? Social science is, somebody says that it is the attribution of the god, it is found in nature. Somebody says no, it is created by man. Somebody says it is found in the society. So that variation had brought differences in the schools of jurisprudence, which we will discuss in the second part of the video. Okay, now Paulus definition, if you look at the Paulus definition, this definition has come in the 16th and 17th century, but his opinion is very, very ambiguous, because of which his definition had been criticized. Wolffian's definition had been criticized because of the reason of the word included divinity in his definition, because law is not divine. We don't know where God exists. We never know, none of us had seen God. Okay, so if God has given rules and regulations, then people had discarded that view, saying that law is not given by God, but it is given by man. Okay, or created by man. But Paulus definition had been discarded because it is ambiguous, it is unclear. Okay, it is not it is very confusing. Look at the definition. Jurisprudence is the law, and law is not to be deduced from the rule, but the rule from the law. He agreed that jurisprudence is law, but it is the law has to be taken from the rules, but the rules is not from the law. This is completely confusing. Law is nothing but rules and regulations. Okay, so he is saying that rule should come from the law, but not from the law should not come from the rules and regulations. I also totally agree with the jurist who criticized Paul's definition, because it is clearly utterly confusing, as it is understood that law is nothing but rules and regulations. So what is this rule should be derived? Maybe there might be some his own opinion, but still it had been discarded on the ground that it is confusing. Okay, now let us move to the next important definitions. I have purposefully included this particular definition in the form of question, as this is asked once: who defined jurisprudence into general and particular? They don't ask you directly like this. Remember, always questions from jurisprudence unit will be asked in the form of match the following. Only definitions would be asked as who gave this definition. Okay, so who defined jurisprudence into general and particular? How question might be asked is that he will give in column 1 the names of the jurists, and in column 2 maybe the works of the jurist or their classification of a concept might be given. Okay, so Austin had defined jurisprudence into general and particular jurisprudence. Okay, now look at his definition. Jurisprudence is positive law which has to study law as it is and not what it ought to be. Now again, about this we are going to in detail discuss when we discuss about the schools of jurisprudence, that is analytical school of jurisprudence. See, law as it is means how it is given by the sovereign authority. We need to interpret law so as given by the sovereign authority, but not according to our expectations. Now this law, what it ought to be, is a concept that has been brought later on by the sociological school of jurists. Okay, now keeping this aside, he is the one who always believes that law must be studied as it is. As it is means Austin was basically from the military background. Okay, he believes that the higher authority, that supreme commander, whatever he gives, he drafts it only for the welfare of the people, and henceforth people must accept it. So that is the reason, if you see also, his definition runs around the triology as said in my second video, around the command, sovereign and sanction. Okay, now moving to the next slide. Salmon defined jurisprudence as the science of first principles of civil law. Salmon criticized Austin's definition on the ground that maybe all the time sovereign given commands or else rules and regulations not necessarily required to be accepted by the people. So what he said is that jurisprudence is a science of first principles of civil law. Now what is civil law? Civil law is basically the law of the land, meant again to regulate the people only. So it was more, Salmon was more focusing on the administration of justice, and those rules and regulations that the jurisprudence deals with are meant for the administration of the justice. Okay. Salmon further classified jurisprudence into generic and specific senses, and also that specific areas of law were actually classified into analytical, historical and ethical jurisprudence. He was more focusing upon analytical. He also agreed with Austin's point of view that law has to be perceived or studied as it is without adding our own opinions or perceptions, because we should not interpret the rules and regulations from our mindset, but what according to, like, in the grammatical way. I hope those, almost all the law students who are viewing my video had an idea about the two modes of interpretation, that is grammatical rule of interpretation of a statute and the logical rule. So Austin says that you have to literally interpret a statute. Okay, now the next one is Keaton. Okay, Keaton says that this question also had been asked. Why I have included the definitions given by few jurists like Keaton and Paulus and Ulfian is very important, because even like right from the LLB days I could see the definition of Ulfian being added in a, like, asked in every internal exam as well as semester exams as well. But Keaton's definition has been asked once in CLAT exam. Those whomsoever are preparing for this UGC NET exam, I advise them even that we have this CLAT exams which are connected with the public enterprises jobs. Okay, so even in that also the syllabus is same. Jurisprudence is one of the important subjects which carries almost like 50 marks. There also definitions are being asked. That's the reason I have tried to collect almost all the important definitions without leaving anything. Okay, so Keaton had defined jurisprudence as the study and systematic arrangement of general principles of law. Okay, now Roscoe Pound had said that the difference between Roscoe Pounds and Salmons is that, look at this Roscoe Pound, he said that body of principles, rules and regulations recognized or enforced by public and regular tribunals in the administration of justice. There he said generally as civil law. Now if you look at the next slide which speaks the definition of gray. This question also had come in June 2019 exam. Not the definition given by Gray, but one of the theories developed by him was asked. I will discuss that. Gray defined jurisprudence as similar to that of Roscoe Pound, but Roscoe Pound said that systematic rules meant for administration of justice, whereas Gray defined that systematic arrangement of rules followed by the courts and the principles involved in those rules. So Gray was more connected to the interpretation of the rules and regulations by the law, because the true lawmakers were the courts, he felt. Okay, now Holland said that jurisprudence is a formal science of positive law. Not only of all the definitions which we discussed right from the beginning of this video, but when compared to other definitions which were existing pertaining to jurisprudence, the most widely recognized and accepted definition is Holland's definition, that is jurisprudence is the formal science of positive law. Now what is positive law? Positive law is nothing but the law that is like imperative law, similar to that of the Austin's thing. Okay, now formal science means, he said jurisprudence is not going to get into the discussion with the contents of the law. It only discusses the formal part, the basics or the fundamental propositions, but it is not going to get into the details of the contents of the law. Now positive law is meant to regulate the external conduct of a human being. That's the reason I said similar to that of the Austin. Okay, now this is very important. I ask you, all of you, to take a screenshot of this. Jurists and their important works. This is how questions will be asked, like column 1, column 2, and you need to match, like those who have given NET exam might be having an idea. HLA Hart is known for concept of law. Henry Maine is known for ancient law. Keaton, elementary principles of jurisprudence. Austin, the province of jurisprudence determined. And the next one is Savigny, the law of possession. Savigny is the propounder of historical school of jurisprudence. Roscoe Pound, outlines of lectures on jurisprudence. Roscoe Pound is known for sociological school of jurisprudence, and Oliver Wendell Holmes is known for common law. He is known for realistic school of jurisprudence and his work common law. Now we are here for the very discussion of schools of jurisprudence. Okay, see, schools of jurisprudence is the study of law. Now what is the schools of thought? Suppose I told you, in the beginning of the video, I might have a different perception towards law. I feel like law will be coming only from the people, means what people opine. Like even during the bifurcation also, there was a committee, Sri Krishna committee being constituted. Okay, why? To collect the public opinion. Instead of collecting public opinion directly, there could be a bill introduced in the parliament, right? But still they thought that public pulse is very important to be known. So I always feel like public opinion is very, very important. That's my thought. Okay, likewise the jurists thought had been varied, because of which there were different schools evolved. And the different schools goes like this: one is natural school of jurisprudence, the other one is analytical school of jurisprudence, historical school of jurisprudence, sociological school of jurisprudence, and the last one is the realistic school of jurisprudence. Apart from this, we have philosophical and Kelson's pure theory of law. But when it comes to the schools of jurisprudence, these five are very, very important schools of jurisprudence. What we are supposed to remember for this upcoming exam is the propounders of the school, what that school of thought advocates, and who had criticized. That's it. I ask you only to remember these three important aspects. One is propounders, and the other one is what the particular school of thought advocates, and the last one is criticism. Now, what are the key points on natural law school? It is also known by different names like fair play action, moral law. The name itself is saying natural law. It is derived from the nature. So they have more focused upon the divinity, sanction given by the God and all that. Okay. Now the contribution, like jurists like Grotius, Hugo Grotius, the father of international law, Hugo Grotius, Pufendorf, Vattel, these three are the propounders of natural law school thought. And also even like Aristotle, Plato also had significantly contributed to this philosophical school and natural school of thought. Now this theory propounds that law is derived from the nature and there is connection between law and morality. Now this law and morality, the third chapter I would be discussing tomorrow, where the jurists like Fuller and Thomas Aquinas had a debate that whether there is a connection between law and morality or there is no connection between law and morality. Okay. Simple man, natural law school is propounded by Grotius, Pufendorf and Vattel. Okay, and it believes that there is connection between law and morality. Remember these 2 points, that would be more than enough. Now, but natural law school of jurisprudence had gradually declined because of the evolution of analytical school of jurisprudence with the efforts of John Austin and Jeremy Bentham. They started to say that law is definitely created by man and that man is sovereign. What is the meaning of sovereign? Sovereign ka matlab kya hai? Political authority, the highest authority who had been either directly or indirectly elected by the people. Whatever comes from his house is ultimately law, not derived from the nature. And moreover, it is lacking empirical value. Okay, it could not be tested because we could not see the God or something. Okay, so that is the reason natural law school, with the contributions of jurists like Stamler and Kohler, had revived and come in the 20th century with the concepts of principles of natural justice and rule of law, which we will be discussing in the upcoming videos in detail. Okay, till now we discussed only with the very first school of jurisprudence, that is natural school of thought. If you have any doubts, you can just add in the comment section. I just want to recap what all we have discussed today. We discussed about the important definitions. Please keep a note on the important definitions. It might be very theoretical, these videos, because the subject is like that and you need to really focus upon the definitions. I have gathered all the important definitions. Just go through all the important definitions. And in regard to the schools of thought, just you need to focus upon the propounders of the theories, and also about the few important terms regarding to those, like natural school of thought. Apart from the propounders, you need to remember the principles of natural justice and rule of law, and the Latin maxims connected to the principles of natural justice. Okay, so thank you for watching my video.